A towering, massive spear descended from the sky, like a star falling from the heavens, carrying with it the power of destruction. Its unstoppable momentum sent shockwaves, causing countless powerful figures in the area to retreat in astonishment. It was clear to everyone that Fang Yi had now fully embraced his murderous intent. His attack was an all-out effort, unleashing everything he had. Bang! Bang! The ground seemed to collapse continuously at that moment. Giant fissures, like terrifying jaws, rapidly spread across the earth. The ground where Mu Chun had fallen was collapsing as well. Huge rocks, each the size of 100 feet, crumbled into dust under the immense pressure from the sky. Fang Yi's strike gathered the peak of his strength, amplified by the power of the ancient star physique. Its sheer terror was enough to make even the strongest, like Nine Nether, Su Ba, and the Blood Eagle King, take notice. Countless gazes turned toward the crumbling wasteland below, where Mu Chen's figure had been buried. Since he had been slammed into the earth by Fang Yi's palm earlier, he hadn't moved again. No one knew if he still had the strength to withstand Fang Yi's impending fatal strike. It seemed the Dark Horse's challenge for supremacy was not going to be an easy feat. Do you think hiding like a rat will help you escape? The star giant spear fell, and Fang Yi stood atop the star physique. His gaze was as cold as ice as he looked down at the wasteland below, sensing Mu Chen's lingering aura. Though his previous attack had struck Mu Chen, he knew full well that such a blow wouldn't cause significant harm to Mu Chen, whose defenses were extraordinary. But no matter how Mu Chen tried to hide, today his fate had already been sealed, because the killing blow was coming. Show yourself. Fang Yi's hand clenched into a fist, and like a star, the massive spear hovered above the wasteland. A terrifying spiritual pressure radiated, and in an instant, the land itself cracked open. The earth was violently torn apart, and deep within, everyone saw a figure clad in golden dragon phoenix armor standing on a massive boulder. Beneath the armor, deep, cold eyes locked onto the terrifying attack falling from the sky. I found you, rat. Fang Yi's eyes were filled with killing intent. The star giant spear trembled violently, locking onto Mu Chun from afar before crashing down with a deafening roar. Everyone held their breath, staring at the figure in dragon phoenix golden armor. They had no idea how Mu Chun would resist Fang Yi's deadly blow. After all, the battle had lasted this long, and Mu Chen's spiritual energy was likely running low by now. Whoosh! Under the watchful eyes of countless spectators, Mu Chen exhaled softly. Then, with a sudden motion, he raised both hands before clenching them tightly. Demonic Lotus Slaughter Array. A deep voice echoed from Mu Chen's mouth, and as soon as the words left him, an astonishing surge of spiritual energy shot into the sky from the depths of the collapsed earth. The ground crumbled further, and 4 eerie black lotuses rose from beneath Mu Chen. They spun slowly, emitting a powerful spiritual fluctuation. Is that a spiritual array? As various forces across the land saw the 4 black lotuses manifesting behind Mu Chen and felt the unique spiritual energy emanating from them, they couldn't help but gasp in surprise. They could all sense that this array Mu Chen had set up was no simple matter. However, Fang Yi remained unmoved by the collective astonishment. He had already investigated Mu Chen thoroughly and knew a great deal of information, including Mu Chen's hidden identity as a spiritual array master. He even knew that during the king's sealing ceremony in the Great Luo Heaven Domain, Mu Chen had defeated Qiu Taiyin with this very array. Qiu Taiyin was just someone who had barely reached the 5th grade supreme, his cultivation unstable. To think you would use the same tactic against me. How naive. Fang Yi sneered coldly. He clenched his hand, and the star giant spear directly descended to crush Mu Chen once and for all. Mu Chen's expression remained calm as his hand seals suddenly shifted. Boom! The 4 black lotuses trembled violently, and instantly, the petals bloomed, gathering layers of dark energy within their centers. In the next instant, 4 massive black light pillars shot out from their cores. Buzz! 4 black light pillars swiftly intertwined, resembling 4 roaring black dragons, twisting around each other before surging upward, carrying an overwhelming wave of spiritual energy, crashing head-on into the descending starry sky divine spear. Boom! In that instant of impact, It felt as if the entire land was being destroyed. A visible shockwave swept through, causing the ground to crumble in layers. Within a few breaths, a massive, deep crater thousands of feet wide appeared on the land. Above the crater, a torrent of dark, eerie light clashed violently with the starry giant spear. Each impact caused the massive pit below to expand further. Everyone watched in astonishment at the chaotic collision, but their eyes mostly held a look of surprise that clearly stemmed from Mu Chen's formidable resistance. In their eyes, the starry giant spear, which should have easily destroyed everything in its path, seemed to be faintly blocked by the powerful demonic Lotus slaughter array, a fact that shocked them. Above the deep crater, Mu Chen gazed at the terrifying standoff in the sky with a calm, unwavering expression. Back when he fought Xiao Taiyin, he was already able to form the 4 Lotus form of the demonic Lotus slaughter array. However, since he had just broken through at that time, he wasn't fully in control of his power, meaning the 4 Lotus form wasn't perfect. But now, Mu Chen had completely stabilized his spiritual power, and with the assistance of the lesser heart demon state, the 4 Lotus form he summoned now was undoubtedly more perfect and powerful than before. If Fang Yi underestimated him now, it would only bring disaster upon himself. You bastard. Just as Mu Chen had expected, Fang Yi's face had turned ashen. His trump cards, which he believed would surely lead to victory, had failed to deliver the expected results. To him, this was simply intolerable. I don't believe it. You won't escape today. Fang Yi's eyes burned with murderous intent. Back in Dragon Phoenix Heaven, Mu Chen had exhausted all his means to only force back the Netherworld Prince, almost getting killed in the process. But now, just a few short months later, Mu Chen had grown to this extent, and even Fang Yi had to use multiple techniques just to deal with him. This rapid growth of Mu Chen's strength had taken him by surprise. If this continued, it was unclear who would have the upper hand the next time they met. Therefore, Mu Chen must die today. A cold glint flashed in Fang Yi's eyes. The next moment, he stomped his foot, slammed his palm onto the starry body's head, and blood flowed from his hand, forming a star map made of coagulated blood on the starry body's crown. Blood-forged star map. With a shout, bloodlight surged from the starry body's head, eventually transforming into streams of blood light that shot out like lightning, covering the starry giant spear. Boom. The spiritual energy fluctuations on the starry giant spear suddenly skyrocketed, and the space around it violently trembled, as if boiling water. A terrifying spiritual energy storm erupted. Boom. The black light pillars, like 4 entwined black dragons, finally crumbled. Cracks spread across the pillars, and with a deafening explosion, they shattered in front of countless horrified gazes. The starry giant spear, tearing through the chaotic spiritual shockwaves, descended straight toward Mu Chen, its killing intent overwhelming. However, even after the starry giant spear had torn through the demonic Lotus slaughter array, it was evident that a heavy price had been paid. The star map on the spear's body had dulled significantly. Still, even with that cost, the attack was powerful enough to make even those at the peak of 5th grade Supreme hesitate to clash head-on. Mu Chen looked up at the spear, which descended like a falling star, the terrifying pressure weighing down on him. Despite the protection of the Dragon Phoenix golden armor and Dragon Phoenix body, Mu Chen still felt sharp pains from the force. Looks like it's not enough. Mu Chen muttered to himself. The 4 Lotus form of the demonic Lotus slaughter array was clearly insufficient to completely block Fang Yi's all-out attack. It seemed the ancient star physique truly had its merits, worthy of its ranking. However, if it came to a battle of supreme Dharmakayas, Mu Chen was confident he wouldn't fear anyone. Mu Chen clasped his hands together, and a brilliant golden light suddenly erupted. A towering shadow, 1,000 feet high, appeared instantly. Behind the giant shadow, a golden solar disk floated, emitting an inexplicable sense of pressure. When the great sun indestructible body appeared, even Fang Yi's eyes narrowed slightly. At that moment, he sensed strange fluctuations emanating from the ancient star physique, a feeling that carried a dangerous undertone. Supreme divine art, 9 suns power. A low growl echoed from Mu Chen's heart at that very moment. Buzz. 2 golden solar disks began to rise from the center of Mu Chen's forehead and chest, releasing terrifying power. However, this was not the peak, for at the same time, another golden solar disk began to form at his abdomen, condensing with intense golden light. 9 suns power, open 3 suns. A roar, accompanied by a terrifying force that shocked countless strong practitioners across the land, erupted like a volcano from within the great sun indestructible body. The sky and earth seemed to change color. 3 dazzling golden solar disks began to rise from Mu Chen's forehead, chest, and abdomen, transforming into a torrent of golden light that spread throughout the space. The golden light, thick and viscous like molten gold, surged forward, and wherever it passed, the already radiant great sun indestructible body became even more dazzling. From a distance, it appeared like a massive golden Buddha standing between heaven and earth. A shockwave of incredible power spread out, shaking the very fabric of the space. Mu Chen's body merged with the great sun indestructible body, his gaze piercing through the body to lock onto the falling star giant spear. Facing Fang Yi's full force strike, his eyes held no trace of fear, only intense heat and battle intent. The 9 suns power within the great sun indestructible body had been unlocked to 3 suns, and this power surged like a mighty dragon roaring inside his body, releasing a terrifying force capable of warping heaven and earth. Although Fang Yi was at the peak of the 5th grade supreme and had cultivated the ancient star physique, a highly ranked supreme physique, Mu Chen had absolute confidence in the power of his own great sun indestructible body. For the evolution of the great sun indestructible body, its ultimate form was one of the legendary 10 primordial Dharma bodies, the eternal undying body. While the great sun indestructible body was merely the lowest form of the eternal undying body, even a small lion still has sharp claws, and even a young tiger exudes the might of a tiger. Anyone who underestimates it will pay the price. Roar. A sound resembling a roar echoed from Mu Chen's heart. His hands suddenly formed a seal, and the great sun indestructible body struck out with one massive hand. Golden liquid flowed, covering the arm, turning it into a thick golden crystal. Within the golden crystal, mysterious and ancient runes seemed to be engraved, releasing a terrifying energy that rippled out. Boom. The giant palm of the great sun indestructible body struck, and the space directly shattered beneath it. A golden shockwave spread wildly, demonstrating the terrifying power contained in Mu Chen's ultimate strike. This was the culmination of his spiritual energy and the 3 suns power of the great sun indestructible body. Many powerful practitioners in the surrounding space couldn't help but change their expressions when they saw this full-force strike. Even several other peak 5th grade supremes grew serious, sensing a thick aura of danger. This Mu Chen is truly remarkable. With the mere power of a 4th grade supreme, he can unleash such terrifying combat strength. It's unimaginable. The powerful figures were filled with shock, for they knew that the difference between each grade of supreme was vast. Bridging that gap was extremely difficult. To see Mu Chen achieve such power with a 4th grade supreme strength left them utterly astonished. Moreover, the most important thing was that Fang Yi was no ordinary 5th grade supreme. With his strength and numerous hidden cards, it was rare for anyone among the 5th grade supremes to challenge him. Yet now, Mu Chen had done it. Under the heavy gazes of countless powerful figures, the star giant spear, like a falling star, descended from the sky and collided fiercely with the massive golden hand rising to meet it. The moment of impact, it was as if the entire world suddenly fell silent. Countless noisy sounds vanished in an instant, and time itself seemed to freeze in place. A golden tornado storm formed almost instantly, expanding rapidly in the wind. Within just a few breaths, it grew to an immense size, reaching tens of thousands of feet tall, before it began to rampage wildly. Inside the golden tornado storm, the spiritual energy had become violently intense, reaching a terrifying level. The destructive power was so overwhelming that even formidable figures like Nine Nether, Su Ba, and Blood Eagle King saw their expressions shift in shock. The golden tornado storm rampaged, and the first to bear the brunt of its fury were the 2 massive supreme Dharmakayas. Boom. The arm of the great sun indestructible body, which was like a golden crystalline layer, was instantly shredded by the storm, and at the same time, Fang Yi's star giant spear shattered completely. The shock waves were visible to the naked eye as they erupted outward. The massive bodies of the great sun indestructible body and the star body were immediately sent flying backward, and as they flew through the air, dense cracks quickly spread across their enormous forms. Clearly, that terrifying impact had instantly shattered their powerful defenses. Under the gazes of countless astonished onlookers, the two massive figures flew across the sky before crashing to the ground, leaving two long, deep gouges in the earth that stretched for miles. Along their path, mountains were obliterated and boulders flew everywhere. Boom! After crashing into another mountain, the force of the two massive figures finally dissipated. As the shockwave faded, the two figures exploded into light points, shattering into pieces. Bang! Two battered figures shot out from the wreckage, crashing into the rubble, collapsing amidst the debris. They were utterly unable to move, their bodies covered in blood as their breaths became faint. In the sky, the terrifying golden storm finally began to dissipate after a while. At this moment, the gaze of every onlooker shifted to the two figures in the ruins. If it weren't for the faint rise and fall of their chests, everyone would have thought that these two figures had been blasted to death in the terrifying collision. The entire world was silent. Countless powerful figures were shocked, none of them expecting this battle between the Dark Horse and the Overlord to reach such a spine-chilling level. Moreover, the outcome was far beyond their expectations. They had originally thought this would be a battle where the Overlord would successfully eliminate the Dark Horse, but in the end, the Overlord did not emerge victorious. Instead, they were dragged into a situation where both sides were severely wounded. Countless powerful figures exchanged glances and couldn't help but gasp in disbelief. If this news spreads, it will surely stir up another huge storm. Though Mu Chun hadn't achieved a crushing victory in this battle, everyone knew that for him to push Fang Yi, whose strength reached the peak of 5th grade supreme and who had trained in the ancient star physique, to a two-way defeat outcome, was truly an astonishing feat. After all, back in Dragon Phoenix Heaven, when Mu Chun faced the Netherworld Prince, who was ranked 2nd in the Dragon Phoenix record, it had been a life-or-death struggle. In the end, he could only barely stall until the daughter of the Flame Emperor defeated Fang Yi. Yet now, in just a few short months, Mu Chun had already gained the power to directly counter Fang Yi and emerge undefeated. Such progress was enough to leave anyone in awe. This child is extraordinary. In the future, this great Luo Heaven domain will surely have a hero. A strong figure whispered, giving Mu Chun an extremely high evaluation. They all understood how rare it was for someone with Mu Chun's background to rise so quickly in just over a year and stand out from the northern domain. In the valley, all the Blood Eagle guards were speechless, and Wu Tian's face was filled with shock. Even Blood Eagle King wore an extremely grave expression. In the past, he had always looked down on Mu Chun to some extent. Even though Mu Chun had defeated Qiu Taiyin, he still felt that the young man was not on the same level as the older, established powerhouses. However, after witnessing Mu Chun's battle with Fang Yi, that mentality was completely eradicated. He knew that, faced with Mu Chun's all-out attack, even he wouldn't dare to underestimate him. This young man was indeed a tiger, one who could not be taken lightly. Compared to their shock, Su Ba's face was dark as thunder, his eyes flickering with a murderous gleam. His expression was extremely grim. This outcome not only caught him off guard, but also filled him with intense anger and heartbreak. Naturally, the source of his pain was the loss of the Fallen Source pills. "Well, thank you for the gift, Mountain Master Su," said Jiu Yu, her taut, beautiful face finally breaking into a smile. Her eyes glanced at Su Ba, and she teased with a grin. Su Ba's face twitched, his hand clenched into a fist, and the veins on his arm throbbed violently. While the world trembled at this result, in the ruins, two blood-soaked figures were shakily standing up, swaying as they regained their balance. Mu Chun's face was pale as he wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. He looked at the grim-faced Fang Yi in the distance and grinned. "It seems you won't be able to kill me this time." Fang Yi's cold, piercing gaze locked onto Mu Chun. His heart seethed with rage. Although he had never underestimated Mu Chun, He never expected that he would be dragged into a situation where both of them would suffer significant losses. This situation was extremely unfavorable for him. Among the young generation in the northern domain, Mu Chen's reputation could never compare to his own. But now, once today's results spread, anyone would think that Mu Chen had earned the right to stand on equal footing with him. This was something he simply could not tolerate. "I'll gladly accept your fallen source pills," Mu Chen said, his skin glowing with golden light. His dragon phoenix body activated, and the blood of dragons and phoenixes flowed within him, quickly healing his serious injuries. The reason he dared to face Fang Yi head-on was because of his dragon phoenix body, which had a self-healing ability comparable to that of divine beasts. As long as the injuries weren't fatal, he could recover at an incredibly fast rate. Fang Yi wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, his cold gaze still fixed on Mu Chen. After a moment, he suddenly looked up, closed his eyes, and sensed something. A strange smile slowly crept across his lips. Although this result was somewhat unexpected, still, Fang Yi turned his head slightly, his eyes icy as he stared at Mu Chen. "The situation is still under my control. Perhaps I should tell you that while killing you was one of my goals, my other goal was simply to delay you. Because I intend to completely wipe out both of your forces. And now, none of you will escape." Fang Yi pointed towards the distant sky. To the north, countless fiery red lights and shadows suddenly surged toward them, accompanied by the chilling howl of wolves that echoed from afar. Meanwhile, to the south, snowflakes began to fall. Amid the flurry of snow, the ancient roar of bears seemed to reverberate through the air, shaking the soul. Jiu Yu and the Blood Eagle King's expressions suddenly changed drastically. They knew that the forces coming were the Flame Wolf Army and the Celestial Bear Army from the Divine Hall. This meant that two more powerful mountain lords from the 10 lords of the Divine Hall had arrived. Now, they were completely surrounded, trapped in a hopeless situation. A whoa, roar, as the murderous howls of wolves and bears echoed from the distant sky, reverberating across the world. The faces of nearly everyone present changed dramatically. They looked up in shock at the two directions, and panicked voices rang out in waves. "Those are the Flame Wolf Army and the Celestial Bear Army from the Divine Hall." So that's why Fang Yi was deliberately stalling, waiting for reinforcements from the Divine Hall. Now, the forces from the Great Luo Heaven Domain are in deep trouble. The 9 Nether Palace and Blood Eagle Hall are doomed. Fang Yi is truly cunning. Since the Flame Wolf Army and Celestial Bear Army have appeared, then the Flame Wolf Lord and the Celestial Bear Lord must also be among them. Both of them are powerful 6th-grade Supremes. With them in charge, even if Mu Chen has refined the battle spirit, he won't be able to make much of an impact. The Great Luo Heaven Domain is going to suffer heavy losses this time. At this moment, Jiu Yu and the Blood Eagle King both looked up at the distant sky, their expressions turning grim. If only Su Ba were here, they might still have been able to make him hesitate and avoid a direct attack. Haha, Su Ba, discovering such a good prey without informing us beforehand. Now you know the price of keeping it all to yourself, don't you? From afar, the air was thick with both crimson and icy energies. Finally, countless flashes of light surged, forming two armies that stood majestically in the sky. The overwhelming battle intent soared into the heavens. At the front of one of the armies, a middle-aged man with red hair laughed to the sky. On his robes, flames resembling fiery wolves howled as they surged forward. "If we hadn't arrived today, your reputation at the Divine Hall might have been diminished," a towering figure from the other army spoke. He stood like an iron tower, exuding immense pressure. A scar ran diagonally down from the corner of his eye, adding a fierceness to his appearance. As he grinned, he resembled an ancient giant bear. Su Ba listened to their mockery, his face darkening. However, he refrained from retorting and simply snorted coldly, as he knew that without the Flame Wolf Army and the Sky Bear Army, he would have had difficulty swallowing both the Blood Eagle Hall and 9 Nether Palace today. "Thank you for your trouble," Su Ba said. Below, Fang Yi smiled at the two arriving armies and said, "This grand hunting war concerns the reputation of the Divine Hall. Personal fame is irrelevant. After this, I will report your timely assistance to the Pavilion Master." "Haha, Lord Fang is still the most eloquent." The Flame Wolf Lord laughed. But his sharp gaze then shifted to Fang Yi, who was covered in blood and looked somewhat disheveled. His expression shifted to surprise, and his gaze then moved to Mu Chen, who was standing opposite Fang Yi, and his astonishment deepened. The Flame Wolf Lord knew Fang Yi's strength well. He was nearly unrivaled among the younger generation in the northern domain. Yet now, someone even younger than Fang Yi had pushed him to such a sorry state, which left the Flame Wolf Lord utterly shocked. "Who is this kid? How could he force you into such a state?" the Flame Wolf Lord asked, astonished. Fang Yi cast a cold glance at Mu Chen and replied indifferently. "He is the recent rising star in the northern domain, the super dark horse, Mu Chen. Lord Wolf, don't underestimate him. If it comes to battle intent control, he might even surpass you. He has already refined the battle spirit of the 9 Nether Guard." Oh, upon hearing this, not only did the Flame Wolf Lord's face show shock, but even the Sky Bear Lord turned his astonished eyes to Mu Chen. As commanders of their respective armies, they both understood the significance of the battle spirit. Once an army refines the battle spirit, its battle intent is greatly enhanced, which is like a divine aid in overall combat. Of course, what was most concerning was that refining the battle spirit meant one had the potential to become a battle formation master. Regardless of the success rate, once successful, it was like a carp leaping through the dragon gate. A battle formation master, even one at the lowest rank, could wield terrifying combat power if they controlled a strong army. "No wonder you sent an urgent message," the Sky Bear Lord grunted, his fierce gaze scanning Mu Chen. While Mu Chen's personal strength wasn't enough to make them too concerned, the potential to become a battle formation master was enough to make them see him as a threat. And such a threat was better dealt with early if the opportunity arose. Fang Yi smiled. Despite being covered in blood, he still appeared rather composed. His sharp gaze turned to Mu Chen as he laughed. "Although you performed well in the previous battle, this should be your last." At this moment, Fang Yi's mindset had calmed down. Although the outcome of the previous battle had left him somewhat disturbed, everything would soon end. If Mu Chen died here, all his previous achievements would vanish like smoke. In the northern domain, no one would remember a dead person. Mu Chen furrowed his brows, observing the scene before him. The 3 great mountain lords of the Divine Hall had arrived, and their 3 armies had practically sealed off the entire area. With the forces currently at their disposal, breaking through would not be easy. Whoosh! At this moment, the figure of the 9 Nether appeared beside Mu Chen. Her delicate face was serious as she looked at the scene and whispered, "What should we do?" Relying on Mu Chen's control over the battle will of the 9 Nether Guard, although the enemy had heavily surrounded them, if they truly wanted to fight to the death, they should still be able to break through. However, that would mean they would have to give up Blood Eagle Hall. Haha, what's this? Are you planning to abandon Blood Eagle Hall? If word of that gets out, it might be hard for your 9 Nether Palace to establish a foothold in the great Luo Heaven domain, Fang Yi said with a smile, clearly seeing through the 9 Nether's intentions before Mu Chen could respond. 9 Nether's eyes turned cold. Fang Yi was quite cunning to say such a thing, clearly attempting to sow discord within Blood Eagle Hall. 9 Nether King, Mu King, if the opportunity arises, you may leave. In the future, when the chance comes, just avenge Blood Eagle Hall for me. The voice of the Blood Eagle King suddenly rang out. His cold gaze flicked toward Fang Yi, and then his eyes turned to Mu Chen and 9 Nether. His previously gloomy expression softened considerably. Though the Blood Eagle King wasn't exactly known for his open-mindedness, he wasn't a fool either. Otherwise, he wouldn't have become one of the 9 kings of the great Luo Heaven domain. Fang Yi's intentions were clearly evident, and with his sharp mind, he would never let Fang Yi have his way. Heh. No wonder you're the Blood Eagle King, full of courage, Fang Yi said with a faint smile. In that case, when 9 Nether Palace breaks through, that will be the moment your Blood Eagle Hall is completely wiped out. Then come and try, the Blood Eagle King said coldly, his eyes filled with murderous intent. Fang Yi slowly rose into the air, his gaze like that of a hawk, scanning the other forces watching in the distance. He spoke casually. Today, this is a battle between my Divine Hall and the great Luo Heaven domain. I ask all of you to stay out of it. Upon hearing this, the other forces in the area stiffened, understanding that Fang Yi was about to clear the field. Naturally, They didn't want to get involved in such a messy situation. They immediately took flight, retreating far away. Nine Nether watched this scene, her brows furrowing, her eyes flashing with indecision. It was clear she was struggling with whether to abandon Blood Eagle Hall and leave on her own. However, while she was still contemplating, Mu Chen's eyes suddenly narrowed, and the corner of his mouth curled into a faint smile. His previously tense body relaxed bit by bit. He looked up at Fang Yi and said, "Looks like you think you've won today." Fang Yi stared coldly at the calm Mu Chen. "Do you really think you can turn the tables? How much spiritual energy do you have left now? In this state, how much control can you still exert over the battle will of the Nine Nether Guard? If you're wise, I suggest you surrender now to avoid the total annihilation of the Nine Nether Guard." Mu Chen smiled and said, "We will not abandon Blood Eagle Hall." His words caused a stir among the Blood Eagle Guard in the valley. Countless grateful gazes shot out, and even the Blood Eagle King and Wu Tian's expressions became complex. Although their relationship with Mu Chen wasn't particularly close, they hadn't expected that even in this situation, Mu Chen still wanted to come to their rescue. "With you?" Fang Yi sneered, his eyes mocking. The Flame Wolf Lord and the Celestial Bear Lord both wore expressions of amusement, their arms crossed as they looked down at Mu Chen, seemingly waiting to see what tricks he might pull in this situation. Mu Chen looked up and laughed. "You really think I'm acting on impulse, willing to play along with you and let you delay things for this long?" Fang Yi's eyes narrowed, and he glared at Mu Chen with icy intent. "You're not the only one who can delay time and wait for reinforcements." Mu Chen smiled slightly, then pointed toward the distant sky. "And, I'm sorry to inform you, but this time, I have more reinforcements than you do." Boom. Suddenly, the distant heavens trembled. Countless powerful figures in the area felt a shockwave in their hearts and looked up in horror. They saw 3 grand streaks of light sweeping across the sky, rushing toward them like a tidal wave. At the forefront of the 3 light trails, 3 figures exuded overwhelming spiritual power. The energy surged like an ocean, and even from a great distance, it rushed toward them like a tidal wave. The Great Luo Heaven Domain, Mountain Splitting Hall. The Great Luo Heaven Domain, Hongya Cavern. The Great Luo Heaven Domain, Spirit, Sword Mountain. The 3 mighty voices boomed like thunder, spreading across the sky. They finally converged, sounding like an explosion, shaking the heavens and earth. Even the Flame Wolf Lord and the Celestial Bear Lord's expressions changed drastically. "Who dares to kill a person from my Great Luo Heaven Domain?" As the vast light waves filled the sky, eventually turning into 3 massive armies standing firm in the world, all the various forces in the area couldn't help but gape. To their surprise, the Great Luo Heaven Domain also had 3 king-level forces rushing here at this moment. At this point, the combined military strength of the Divine Hall and Great Luo Heaven Domain in this area had already reached nearly 100,000 troops. This could almost directly trigger a large-scale war of tremendous proportions. Who would have expected that what began as a small-scale encirclement would eventually evolve into a standoff between such massive military forces? If the 2 sides truly went to war, the skies would change color, the land would be littered with corpses, and blood would stain the heavens. The various forces watching from the surrounding regions quietly began to retreat. Looking at the current situation, if the war broke out, it would surely be a bloody clash between the 2 top forces, the Divine Hall and Great Luo Heaven Domain. If they were to get caught up in it, with their strength, they would not be able to withstand such catastrophic consequences. As all the forces hurriedly withdrew from this area, Fang Yi, Su Ba, and the others, including the Flame Wolf Lord and Sky Bear Lord in midair, all had grim expressions on their faces. Clearly, they had not anticipated that the Great Luo Heaven Domain would bring such a powerful reinforcement. The Mountain-Splitting King was among the top 3 in terms of strength among the Great Luo Heaven Domain's kings. Cliff King and Spirit Sword King were also quite famous, and the armies under their command were particularly formidable. With the additional support from Nine Nether Palace and the wounded Bloodhawk Hall, the balance of power was almost immediately reversed. Because on their side, they only had 3 6th-grade Supremes, while the Great Luo Heaven Domain had gone from 2 to 5 in an instant. If a real bloodbath were to occur, the Divine Hall would undoubtedly suffer a devastating loss. Compared to the grim expressions of Fong, Yi, and the others, Nine Nether and Blood Eagle King let out a sigh of relief. Fortunately, the reinforcements had arrived in time. Otherwise, today, they would have been in serious trouble. So you were also planning on waiting for reinforcements? Nine Nether glared at Mu Chen, realizing he was just as sly as Fong Yi, both harboring hidden intentions. With just 9 Nether Palace, it's unlikely we could defeat the Celestial Crocodile Army. So waiting for reinforcements was the best choice. Mu Chen smiled and said, I didn't expect Fong Yi to have the same idea, but fortunately, our luck is a bit better, and the reinforcements we brought are stronger than theirs. 9 Nether nodded, finally relaxing. Now, the situation clearly favored them in the Great Luo Heaven Domain, and it was time for Fong Yi and Su Ba to start worrying. I was wondering who was trying to strike at the Great Luo Heaven Domain. So it's the Divine Hall people. But they don't seem to be particularly powerful. What's going on? Aren't Sky Dragon Lord and White Tiger Lord here? Above them, before the mountain-splitting legion, the mountain-splitting king stood with his hands behind his back, his voice carrying a strong oppressive force that echoed through the heavens and earth. The mountain-splitting king had a remarkable presence, and among the kings of the Great Luo Heaven Domain, he ranked among the top 3. In terms of fame and reputation, he surpassed 9 Nether, Blood Eagle King, and the other 2 kings present. And clearly, he had the strength to match that presence. Though he was also a 6th grade supreme, Mu Chen could feel that the pressure emanating from his body was stronger than the other kings. In this entire region, whether from the Great Luo Heaven Domain or the Divine Hall, no one seemed stronger than the mountain-splitting king. So when he spoke, even though Su Ba, Flame Wolf Lord, and Sky Bear Lord had darkened expressions, they didn't retort. They could all feel that the mountain-splitting king's strength was at the peak of the 6th grade supreme, a level above theirs. If Sky Dragon Lord and White Tiger Lord were here, perhaps the mountain-splitting king wouldn't be so confident. Fong Yi spoke calmly, staring at the mountain-splitting king. As a key figure in the younger generation of the Divine Hall, Fong Yi's insight was exceptional. He was not intimidated by the mountain-splitting king's peak 6th grade supreme power. Making such meaningless assumptions is pointless, Brother Fong Yi. Mu Chen chuckled, his teasing smile making Fong Yi's face freeze with cold anger. It seemed that at this moment, Fong Yi was furious. What he had believed to be a winning situation had instantly turned into a reversal. The rabbit he thought was caught now had sharper teeth and was trying to bite back. You think that just because your reinforcements are a bit stronger, you've already won? Fong Yi said coldly, his sharp gaze fixed on Mu Chen. If it comes to a real fight, you'll have to pay the price, so I advise you. However, Mu Chen ignored his threat completely. Without waiting for Fong Yi to finish, he looked up at the 3 kings of the Great Luo Heaven Domain in the air and said, 3 of you, get ready to act. Since you've come, there's no reason to avoid bloodshed. Blood Eagle King, when we strike, please be ready to let the Blood Eagle Guard charge out. He shifted his gaze, turning to the Blood Eagle Hall that was sealed within the valley, and spoke in a low voice. Got it. The mountain-splitting king burst into laughter, his voice filled with appreciation. It was clear that Mu Chen's no-nonsense, thunderous approach was exactly to his taste. Since they now had the upper hand, they would naturally go all in. As for the cost, everything required sacrifice. Nothing could stop them from doing what needed to be done just because of the price. With the mountain-splitting king's laughter, the mountain-splitting legion behind him roared loudly, their voices like thunder, echoing through the heavens and the earth. An overwhelming battle intent soared into the sky. The mountain-splitting legion numbered over 10,000, far surpassing the 9 Nether Guard, and this alone showed the deep foundation of the mountain-splitting hall within the Great Luo Heaven Domain. Even though the 9 Nether Palace had been striving to catch up this year, there was still a significant gap between them and such an old established king-level power in the Great Luo Heaven Domain. At this moment, the other 2 kings also combined their forces with the mountain-splitting legion to drive their immense battle intent. The 3 armies locked their sights on the Flame Wolf army and the Celestial Bear army high above, their battle spirit flaring. Fong Yi, Su Ba, and the others' faces turned ashen. They clearly hadn't expected Mu Chen to be so decisive, showing no concern for the price of this bloodbath. What do we do now? Fang Yi, Su Ba, the Flame Wolf Lord, and the Celestial Bear Lord's voices were transmitted through spiritual energy, constantly exchanging information. The current situation had completely shifted in favor of the Great Luo Heaven Domain. If Mu Chun and the Mountain-Splitting King were willing to pay the cost, it was likely that their Divine Hall's 3 armies would suffer severe losses. Fang Yi's face changed, and after a moment of hesitation, he gritted his teeth and said, "Split up and retreat. We need to preserve our strength. There's no need to be surrounded by them. When our Divine Hall's forces regroup, we'll have a chance to make them pay for today." Upon hearing this, Su Ba, the Flame Wolf Lord, and the Celestial Bear Lord could only nod reluctantly. In this situation, if they continued to fight recklessly, they would suffer heavy casualties. While the Great Luo Heaven Domain would also pay a price, it would clearly be less than theirs. Boom. With the decision made, Su Ba and the others showed no further hesitation. With a wave of their hands, their massive armies surged with immense battle intent and shot out in 3 directions like dazzling beams of light. "Since you've come, you might as well leave your mark." The Mountain-Splitting King snorted coldly as he swung his hand. A terrifying battle intent swept through the Mountain-Splitting Legion and transformed into a sky-darkening storm of spears, heading straight for the retreating Celestial Bear Army. The other 2 kings also led their forces, launching a fierce assault on the Flame Wolf Army. Boom. Though the Celestial Bear Army and the Flame Wolf Army were retreating, they were clearly maintaining a defensive stance. The moment they saw the incoming attack, they immediately activated their battle intent to defend themselves. The powerful clash of battle intent shook the entire world, and the ground trembled violently. The storm of battle intent raged, and mountains were instantly reduced to rubble. However, facing the full-force assault of the Mountain-Splitting Legion's 3 king-level armies, the already retreating Celestial Bear Army and Flame Wolf Army were clearly unable to hold their ground. As the battle intent collided, the 2 armies' forces wavered, and now and then, dim shadows fell from their ranks. Those were the soldiers who had been struck down or killed by the shockwaves. Mu Chen's figure shot into the sky and reappeared before the 9 Nether Guard. His body shimmered with golden light. The injuries he had sustained during the earlier clash with Fang Yi had already been mostly healed, thanks to his god-beast-like regenerative ability. "Who are we dealing with?" 9 Nether asked, eager to join the fight. After waiting for so long, it was finally time to act. Mu Chen's gaze was fixed on Fang Yi, who was retreating with the Celestial Crocodile Army. Clearly, he was wary of this opponent. Despite using all his trump cards, he had only managed to bring them to a draw, which had made Mu Chen realize that the Dragon Phoenix Record's ruler name was indeed well-deserved. Now that he had managed to injure this person, he couldn't let him escape so easily. "We can't let him go." Mu Chen raised his finger and pointed toward Fang Yi, who was following the retreating Celestial Crocodile Army. A murderous intent gradually filled his dark eyes. Mu Chen's palm struck down fiercely. Behind him, the 9 Nether's guard erupted with a thunderous roar.